The scalpel slice echoed in my skull like a thunderclap, even months later. The moment I woke up groggy in that sterile recovery room, tubes snaking from my arm, knowing I just handed over a piece of myself to the man I loved. "Elijah, you idiot," Marcus had whispered through cracked lips before they wheeled me away, his voice a gravelly plea that twisted my gut worse than any anesthesia. But it was the nurse's offhand mutter as she checked my vitals that hit like a freight train. "Your sugar daddy's gonna pull through. Lucky break for both of you." I wasn't his sugar baby. God, how I hated that label, the way it slithered through cocktail parties in the village like smoke from a cheap cigar, whispered by trust fund brats who'd never scraped by on barista wages and borrowed dreams. Marcus Whitaker, Silver Fox architect, king of Manhattan's glass tower empire, was twice my age, sure, with a penthouse that overlooked Central Park like it was his personal kingdom. But when we met 3 years back at that queer art gallery opening in Chelsea, it wasn't his wallet that hooked me. It was the way he lingered by a Basquiat knockoff, eyes tracing the jagged lines like they mapped his own hidden fractures. And when our gazes locked, he didn't smirk or buy me a drink. He just said, "That chaos looks like it hurts to love," and handed me his card. No strings, no games. We built something real from there. Lazy Sundays sketching blueprints on his king-sized bed, me teaching him to two-step to old Motown records in his sun-drenched kitchen, him dragging me to black-tie galas where I'd stand awkward in rented tuxes, feeling like an imposter among the elite. He called me his muse, said I grounded him when the deals soured and the city chewed him up. And yeah, he paid my tuition at Pratt, covered the rent on my Bushwick walk-up when my mom's chemo bills piled like snowdrifts. But it was love, fierce and flawed, the kind that doesn't tally IOUs. Until his kidneys started failing, that is, chronic, the doc said, from years of boardroom stress and skipped checkups. Dialysis kept him afloat, but barely. His once broad shoulders hunching like a man carrying the weight of every skyscraper he'd ever dreamed. "You don't have to do this," he'd growled in the transplant coordinator's office, his hand crushing mine under the fluorescent buzz, veins bulging like rivers on a map. But I saw the fear in his eyes. The same terror I'd glimpsed when he confessed his ex-wife's ghost still haunted his dreams. How she'd called him a fraud before she left with half his soul and all his regrets. "I'm your match, Marcus." "Perfect," they said. "Let me fix this for us." He pulled me close that night, our foreheads touching in the dim light of his study, the skyline winking like it approved. "You're too good for my messes, Eli," he murmured, breath warm against my neck. "But if you sign those papers, promise me, no looking back." The surgery was a blur of pre-op jitters and post-op haze. But the betrayal? That came sharp and cold 2 weeks later, when I was still hobbling on painkillers and half a functioning gut. I'd been crashing at his place. Our place, really, though his Park Avenue doorman still eyed me like fresh meat, when the call came from St. Luke's. Marcus had coded in his sleep, they said. Clot, an infection, the works. By the time I dragged myself to his bedside, machines beeping like a dirge, he was gone. 68 years old, architect of worlds, but felled by his own fragile one. I collapsed there, knees buckling on the linoleum, his hand limp in mine, the kidney I'd given him now a silent thief in his chest. The funeral was a circus of vultures. His sister, Vivian, sharp as a stiletto, with her Botox smile and real estate empire, flew in from the Hamptons, her husband trailing like a neutered spaniel. She cornered me in the receiving line at Riverside Memorial, her perfume choking like funeral incense. "Elijah, dear," she cooed, voice dripping honey over venom. Such a tragedy. Marcus always had a soft spot for strays. The mourners murmured, old clients in Brioni suits shooting pitying glances, and I swear I heard "gold digger" hissed behind a lace veil. I wanted to scream that I'd scrubbed his fevered brow at 3 a.m., that we'd argued over paint swatches for his next project like an old married couple, that the last words he'd gasped were, "Love you, kid. Don't let him break you." But grief glued my tongue, so I just nodded, tasting bile. Vivian wasted no time. 2 days later, she summoned me to Marcus's lawyer's office on Wall Street, the kind of mahogany den tomb where fortunes are carved up like Thanksgiving turkey. I showed up in my best button-down, the one he'd bought me for our anniversary, scar itching under the fabric like a fresh accusation. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, pinstripes and a comb over that, screamed, "I've seen it all," cleared his throat as Vivian perched across the table, legs crossed like a guillotine. Elijah Washington, he began, flipping open the leather folio. Marcus amended his will last month post-transplant. Unconventional. Unconventional. That's code for bombshell. Marcus had left it all to me. The penthouse, the firm with its 30-story portfolio, the offshore accounts swollen from decades of deals, even his vintage Mustang rusting in a Jersey garage. 27 million, give or take, wired clean. My breath hitched, the room spinning like I chugged bad diner coffee. Vivian's face went the color of ash, her manicure digging crescents into the armrest. This is absurd. She spat, voice cracking like fine china. He was delirious, doped on meds. You, a barista he picked up like yesterday's latte? This is coercion, plain and simple. Coercion. The word landed like a slap, dredging up every sneer, every side eye from Marcus's world. I donated my kidney out of love, not ledger books. Matched by some cosmic fluke, tested in secret because he begged me not to make a fuss. But now, whispers would morph into roars. The hustler who played nurse for a payday. Hargrove slid the papers across. Marcus's scrawl, steady as ever. To Elijah, my anchor in the storm. You gave me life twice over. Take this and build something unbreakable. Don't look back. Tears blurred the ink, hot and furious. I'd never asked for this. Hell, I'd have walked away empty-handed if it had kept him breathing. Vivian lunged for the documents, but Hargrove blocked her with a raised palm. It's ironclad, Mrs. Langford. Witnesses notarized. Marcus was lucid. Video deposition if you contest. She whirled on me then, eyes wild, the mask slipping to reveal the raw wound beneath. You think you're family? He pitied you, Elijah. A pretty face to warm his lonely nights while we buried our parents and built that legacy. I was his blood, his only blood left. And you stole him. Her voice broke, not on anger, but something deeper, a grief laced with envy. For the first time, I saw her not as the Ice Queen, but a woman who'd lost her brother to a city that devoured tenderness. I stood, chair scraping like a confession, the weight of it all crashing down, the fortune, the firm, the ghost of Marcus's laugh echoing in empty rooms. I didn't steal anything, I said, voice steady for the first time since the oar. He gave it, because he chose me. Not pity, Viv. Love. She deflated, shoulders slumping, and in that moment, the room held its breath. Betrayal hung thick, but so did truth. Marcus had seen us both, his fractured family, and bet on the one who'd stay. The months blurred into a haze of legal skirmishes and boardroom battles. Vivian contested, of course, dragged it through surrogates and appeals, painting me as the opportunistic twink who charmed a dying man. Tabloids ate it up. Sugar baby scores skyline jackpot, splashed across the post. My face pixelated next to Marcus's obit. Friends vanished. Old gallery buddies ghosting texts. My mom calling from her Atlanta nursing home with worried sighs. Baby, you sure this is what he wanted? Nights, I'd pace the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing a city that felt more cage than canvas. Tracing the scar low on my side like braille for loss. But the climax hit on a muggy July evening. Thunder rumbling over the Hudson like God's own temper tantrum. Vivian showed up unannounced, rain-soaked and sans husband, clutching a bottle of Marcus's favorite bourbon. Pappy Van Winkle, the one we'd cracked on our first real date. The doorman buzzed her up, and there she was, dripping on Persian rugs, eyes red-rimmed. I came to fight, she said, thrusting the bottle at me like a white flag gone wrong. Or to drink. Hell, maybe both. We ended up on the terrace, city lights smearing through the downpour, passing the bourbon back and forth until it burned less. She talked first, spilling guts about their childhood in Queens, pre-Whitaker fortune, when Marcus sketched houses on napkins and promised she'd never want for anything. He was my hero, she whispered, voice fracturing. Then you came along and I saw him light up, really light up. I hated you for it. Hated that he chose joy over duty. I nodded, the rain mingling with tears I didn't bother hiding. I thought I was the intruder, the kid crashing the party. But he said we were both his legacy. You the steel spine, me the wild heart. By dawn, the storm broke and so did we, open, raw, human. She dropped the suit that week, signed over her shares with a quiet grace. Build on it, Elijah, she said at the closing, hugging me fierce in the lawyer's lobby. For him. For us. The firm thrived under my touch, green retrofits on his old towers, scholarships for queer artists at Pratt, a foundation for transplant families that bore his name. Vivian became Aunt Viv, crashing Sundays with her sharp wit and softer edges, reminding me family isn't blood, but the ones who stay through the scalpel's edge. 2 years on, I stand on that same rooftop where Marcus proposed we'd make this official someday. Scar faded but soul scarred deeper. The city's pulse thrums below, alive with possibility, and I like to think he's out there in the ether, sketching blueprints for whatever comes next. I wasn't a sugar baby. I was his salvation and in the end, mine. Love's the real inheritance. Messy, monumental, forever American in its stubborn hope.